Next on Currents News, big changes are coming to several Catholic academies in the Brooklyn Diocese. We'll have full coverage of what is happening and why. A new government shutdown is near, but what would it be like if President Trump declares a national emergency?
Here in the Diocese of Immigrants, faith and culture combine for a special liturgy in honor of the Lunar New Year. I'm Katie Anguster, and that story is coming up next on Currents News.
Plus, the Cathedral Club. For more than a century, Brooklyn's top Catholic lay organization holds a special event headlined by New York's top cop. The news starts right now. Good evening, everyone. I'm Liz Faublas. The pressures of declining enrollment and severe budget deficits are forcing school officials to close 3 Catholic academies in the Brooklyn Diocese while merging 2 others. The boards of Mary Queen of Heaven in Mill Basin, Our Lady of Guadalupe in Dyker Heights, and St. Camillus in Rockaway have voted to shut down after this school year. In Bushwick, St. Francis Cabrini Catholic Academy and St. Bridget Catholic Academy will merge with the new school located at St. Bridget's. These difficult decisions are the result of intense analysis of enrollment trends and the financial picture of each academy. Currents News' Emily Drewby is here now with more on that part of the story. Emily.
Liz, this was not a decision that was made lightly. Officials tell me the schools tried for years to find a way to stay open, but ultimately a decline in enrollment and therefore funds have brought them to a critical point.
Mary Queen of Heaven Catholic Academy in Mill Basin, Our Lady of Guadalupe Catholic Academy in Dyker Heights, and St. Camillus Catholic Academy in Rockaway Park, Queens, will close their doors for good in June, while 2 Bushwick academies, St. Francis Cabrini and St. Bridget, will merge into one school housed at St. Bridget. School officials are citing serious budget deficits because of declining enrollment as the reason for the changes. They explain the schools did everything in their power for years to keep these academies open, but unfortunately they still hit a critical point and realistically could no longer cover their overhead. For example, Mary Queen of Heaven has seen a 60% decline in enrollment from 5 years ago. The school is $250,000 in the red for the current school year. At Our Lady of Guadalupe, enrollment is down 35%, and they have a $200,000 deficit for this school year. St. Camillus has seen enrollment down by about 25%, with a deficit of $20,000 for this school year and over a $100,000 deficit for the past 2 years. The merger is being credited to declining enrollment and unexpected building repairs totaling over $200,000. In a statement, Thomas Chazuko, the superintendent of Catholic schools in the diocese, explained, "When resources are constrained, it affects all aspects of the learning environment, which eventually impacts students and their needs. Our children are our first priority." Adding that redirecting funds into schools that are more stable will ultimately lead to a better education for students. Affected students will be accommodated at nearby Catholic academies and will get a $500 tuition assistance grant if they go to an academy or parish school within the Diocese of Brooklyn if they've met their financial obligations. The goal to make sure students are placed in neighboring Catholic schools. For Mary Queen of Heaven, that could mean going to Midwood, St. Bernard, Our Lady of Trust, St. Mark, Good Shepherd, St. Edmund School. While for Our Lady of Guadalupe, that could mean going to St. Bernadette, St. Ephraim, Our Lady of Perpetual Help, St. Athanasius, St. Peter, and for St. Camillus, that could mean going to Our Lady of Grace, St. Bernard, St. Francis de Sales, St. Rose of Lima, St. Helen, or Midwood.
The announcement came just a few days after the Archdiocese of New York announced the closure of 7 schools, declining enrollment also cited as one of the reasons for those closures. Liz?
Emily, a big question here. What is going to happen for the parents of these students affected by these closures?
Liz, for the next few weeks, schools are going to be holding information nights where parents can learn more about other Catholic academies in the areas like the one I mentioned before, so that parents are able to make a very educated decision when it comes to their child's next step.
All right, Emily, thank you so much for that report. More controversy tonight over New York's abortion bill signed into law by Governor Andrew Cuomo. Queens District Attorney Richard Brown dropped a criminal charge against suspect Anthony Hobson, accused of stabbing Jennifer Eroyan and her unborn baby to death. The move came after the act known as the RHA eliminated criminal penalties for violence that ends women's pregnancies. Dennis Paus of the New York State Catholic Conference, over a photo of the dead woman, tweeted, quote, "Thanks to the RHA, it's open season on pregnant women in New York." Reaction tonight from America's bishops after the Supreme Court put a hold on Louisiana's abortion law. It requires abortion providers to have admitting privileges at local hospitals. The bishops are saying, quoting here, "The fact that abortionists and their facilities cannot or will not meet basic health needs exposes the lie of their clever slogan that abortion is health care. Abortion extremism actively works against the welfare of women." The court is likely to rule on the merits of the Louisiana law in its next term. Vermont Bishop Christopher Coyne is strongly condemning an abortion bill that he says is guaranteeing unrestricted abortion through all 9 months of pregnancy. A baby in the womb can be terminated right up to the moment of natural birth. That is not abortion, that is infanticide. The bill is advancing through Vermont's legislature. In Washington, the deal should already be done by now to prevent a new government shutdown, but Kristen Holmes reports from Capitol Hill that talks are stalled once again.
Time is running out. Democrats and Republicans scrambling to avoid another government shutdown. And all optimism once surrounding the negotiations has faded.
I think the talks are stalled right now.
The impasse over two key issues. The first, how many undocumented immigrants can be held in detention centers used by Immigration and Customs Enforcement. A key Democratic negotiator saying that a limit on those held would, quote, force the Trump administration to prioritize arresting and deporting serious criminals, not law-abiding immigrants. Republicans calling the cap a non-starter, arguing it would force ICE officials to make impossible decisions about which immigrants to detain. The second, how much money should go into a border wall or barrier. Key lawmakers set to meet Monday afternoon, hoping to revive talks and make new progress in order to hit the Friday deadline and keep the government open. The White House not ruling out another shutdown.
You asked me a question, is a shutdown entirely off the table? The answer is no.
If no deal is reached, 800,000 federal workers could find themselves furloughed again or asked to work without pay. Meanwhile, President Trump is in El Paso, Texas Monday for his first political rally of the year, making his case once again for the border wall. In Washington, Kristen Holmes, Currents News.
If there's no agreement with Congress, President Trump has said he could build his border wall by declaring a national emergency. But what does that mean for the American people? Karen Kaifa has more from Washington.
President Trump made another pitch to Congress for his proposed border wall during his State of the Union address.
Simply put, walls work and walls save lives.
But he's not been shy about considering bypassing their approval and declaring a national emergency to gain access to emergency funds instead.
Having a national emergency does help the process. It would certainly help the process.
The United States is actually already under 31 states have declared emergency, according to a review of documents from the Congressional Research Service and the Federal Register. One goes all the way back to the Carter administration, a response to the Iran hostage crisis in 1979. President Trump has made 3, including one to punish foreign actors found to interfere in U.S. elections. Typically, they're not controversial because there's broad consensus, like President Bush's declaration following the 9/11 terrorist attacks. Congress can vote to overturn it, but Senate Majority Leader Mitch McConnell wouldn't say whether his Republican-controlled chamber would do that.
Well, we don't know what route the president's going to take, so I'm not going to speculate on it at this point. As you know, it is an expedited procedure with a simple majority.
If the president were to veto Congress, they'd need 2/3 of each chamber to override it. The judicial branch may also have a say if, as expected, legal challenges question whether the president is overstepping his authority and whether what's happening at the border reaches the threshold to warrant such a move. In Washington, Karen Kaifa, Currents News.
Former Cardinal Theodore McCarrick could be stripped of his collar shortly. Crux editor John Allen is reporting that the Vatican will announce a ruling in the McCarrick case possibly as soon as this week. McCarrick is accused of sexual abuse of a teenage boy as well as various incidents with adult priests and seminarians. Pope Francis has summoned the bishops from around the world for a summit on sexual abuse next week. Pope Francis is adding a strong voice, calling for the end of slavery that leads to human trafficking. He is demanding governments do more.
Tutti però possiamo e dobbiamo collaborare denunciando i casi di sfruttamento e schiavitù di uomini, donne e bambini.
The Pope's message Sunday comes just days after acknowledging the abuse of nuns and sisters by priests and bishops. The largest U.S. organization of women religious thanked Francis, saying, "We hope that Pope Francis's acknowledgement is a motivating force for all of us in the Catholic Church to rectify the issue of sexual abuse by clergy thoroughly and swiftly." An historic thunderclap erupted over the Vatican on this day 6 years ago. Then, Pope Benedict XVI gathered a large group of cardinals together to discuss canonizations of new saints until Benedict shocked them. He was resigning from the chair of St. Peter.
In gravescente etate, non iam aptas esse ad monus Petrinum eque administrandum.
The papal resignation was the first in 600 years. The 91-year-old pontiff lives in retirement at a Vatican convent. Turning now to the Brooklyn Diocese and the man in charge of New York's police department. Commissioner James O'Neill was the headline speaker at a major Catholic event. Currents News' Tim Harfman reports on Thursday's Cathedral Club dinner.
NYPD Commissioner James O'Neill addressing hundreds at Brooklyn's Cathedral Club dinner about the important role of faith in the city.
If we're going to continue to make New York City a safe place for all 8.6 million residents, we all have to work together. And I think the church plays a big part in that. We have to recognize each other's humanity, and I think that's how we make the city even safer.
The Cathedral Club is the top lay Catholic organization in Brooklyn, hard at work for over a century. At its annual dinner, Bishop DiMarzio points to its contributions in strengthening Catholic unity.
We see people coming together, working together for a common cause, and at the same time respecting one another. This is what we need in our society.
And for the future of society, the Cathedral Club earmarks the proceeds from its dinner to a scholarship fund for Catholic high school students.
The Catholic faith is under attack, from every direction these days, and I think that, it's important, and it's our mission, to keep the Catholic high school programs going.
The Cathedral Club's mission is strongly supported by the Tablet and Nuestra Voz editor Jorge Dominguez and our anchor Liz Faublas, who emphasizes the need to support students.
They're the ones that are going to carry on the traditions. They're the ones that they're going to carry on the faith. So if we can't all come together for that, then we're truly lost.
You see here people from so many different backgrounds, different cultures, everybody together. This is when you think that you remember that Catholic means universal.
Part of that universal church, the event's honoree, Dominic Kama, president and COO of Investors Bank. Mr. Kama remembered how a Catholic education made a difference for him.
It served as a foundation for me in my career, in my family, and really has served as the backbone of everything that has been good in my life.
New York's top cop, Commissioner O'Neill, told a similar story.
The message that I received at home from my mom and my dad was that this life is not just about you, it's about helping other people. It was reinforced by that Catholic education.
In Midtown Manhattan, Tim Harfman, Currents News.
There's a lot more news headed your way. Chinese Catholics celebrate a new year and ancient traditions, with Bishop DiMarzio leading the way. The final battle against ISIS in Syria is being fought, and thousands of civilians are stuck in the middle. A threatening Nicolas Maduro and what he's saying about President Trump. And do you have a story idea or want to share a tip? Email us at newstips@desalesmedia.org or call our 24-hour number, 718-517-3122. We'll be right back. A thaw in the hard-line stand of Communist China against the Catholic Church. We're getting word tonight that a Chinese bishop and 2 priests were freed from custody in time for the Lunar New Year. The church, loyal to the Pope, has suffered persecution from authorities in Beijing. The bishop and priests are part of the underground Catholic community in northern China. They had been held since last year. In the heart of the Chinese American community in Flushing, Queens, Bishop DiMarzio led a celebration of the Lunar New Year with a service that highlighted faith and tradition. Currents News' Katie Engerser reports.
Brooklyn's Bishop Nicholas DiMarzio is celebrating the Lunar New Year with a liturgy at St. Michael's Church in Flushing.
Chinese New Year is very important for Chinese people because first thing we have to celebrate and remember the ancestors.
After an offering of candles and flowers, the bishop blesses the ancestral altar with incense. The tradition isn't a Catholic rite, but has been handed down for generations among the Chinese people, a sign of respect that is a key element in a mass of Thanksgiving during the Chinese New Year.
And this is a part and parcel of the Chinese culture to recognize where you came from and honor the ancestors.
The Catholic Church has had a turbulent history in China. The first recorded missionary priest arrived there in the 13th century. But by the 18th century, Christianity had been banned. And in the 19th century, Europeans who tried to spread the faith could be sentenced to death. For a long time, Catholic Church officials were reluctant to recognize Chinese customs. Pope Pius XII changed that, allowing the Chinese rituals to be performed during Mass.
To me, it's a new, very, very special feeling. It's so hard to scrap.
Today, Beijing and the Vatican are working to heal the rupture in relations that has existed since the communists seized power in China 70 years ago. A new agreement is in place sharing authority over the appointment of bishops between the Holy See and China's state-governed church. Meanwhile, in the United States, an influx of Chinese to our shores is helping to grow the American Catholic Church. Last Easter, in the Brooklyn Diocese alone, 350 Chinese Americans were welcomed into the faith. For the holiday celebration, Bishop DiMarzio participates in a long-held Chinese tradition, distributing red envelopes containing small gifts, a symbol of good luck.
We carry on, that this is remember it and also carry on, our Chinese New Year.
In Flushing, Katie Engerser, Currents News.
The bishops of the United States are highly critical of officials in Alabama and the U.S. Supreme Court for executing a man while keeping his imam from his side. Dominic Ray, a Muslim, was sentenced to death for 3 murders committed in 1995. He was turned down in his request for the imam to be present at the execution. The bishop saying the execution of Dominic deeply troubles us. The death penalty itself is an affront to human dignity. Mr. Ray bore the further indignity of being refused spiritual care in his last moments of life. This unjust treatment is disturbing to people of all faiths. Democrat Congresswoman Ilhan Omar is apologizing tonight after she accused a pro-Israel lobbying group of paying off American politicians. Omar, who is Somali American and represents Minnesota, tweeted the relationship between the U.S. and Israel is, quote, all about the Benjamins. Democratic leadership reacted, saying Omar's use of anti-Semitic tropes and prejudicial accusations about Israel supporters is deeply offensive. We condemn these remarks and call upon Congresswoman Omar to immediately apologize. Late today, Omar did so, saying she never intended to offend constituents or Jewish Americans as a whole. On the battlefield in Syria, U.S.-backed troops are in the midst of a fierce fight to wipe out ISIS. Caught in the crossfire are innocent civilians. Ben Wiedemann has the latest from eastern Syria.
The final battle began just after sunset, with coalition airstrikes pounding the last dot on the map held by the state that called itself Islamic. But there was no calm before the storm, as gunners with the U.S.-backed Syrian Democratic Forces rained heavy machine gun fire down onto ISIS targets, while civilians who had stuck it out in the town made their way to safer ground. An hour before the final push began, Arab tribal fighters danced, a useful morale-raising exercise perhaps, before the coming battle. The battle to take the last enclave of ISIS in Syria is now into its second day. Syrian democratic forces have made good progress within the town, but they are encountering some resistance from the ISIS fighters. This despite the constant heavy coalition airstrikes on the town. But as the day wore on, the going got tougher and the airstrikes increased. It's a hit, he says. ISIS has dug a network of tunnels and trenches. Its fighters, some of its most experienced and battle-hardened. This battle will not end the war on ISIS. When ISIS, the state, is replaced by ISIS, the terrorist insurgency, Jamaat, an Arab fighter tells me, it will be tougher still. This war is easy, he says. We're fighting them on a front. It will be different when it becomes guerrilla warfare. Victory of sorts is at hand. Peace in this tortured land still elusive. Ben Weedle, outside Bahrouz el-Fouqani in eastern Syria.
Surrounded by soldiers, embattled Venezuelan ruler Nicolas Maduro is boasting that the United States is not a threat to his country. During a celebration of new military exercises, Maduro addressed the crowd.
Somos un pueblo pacifista, pero que nadie se meta con nosotros.
He says Venezuela wants peace. We have the right to peace, but we don't want anyone to get into our business. That Donald Trump does not threaten us. Out Donald Trump from Venezuela. Out your threats. Still to come on Currents News, it's National Catholic Marriage Week. Find out what the church says spouses should be doing to celebrate. Plus, a family traveling from the Pope's home country to Rome gets the trip of a lifetime. We'll be right back. This is National Catholic Marriage Week, and the church is offering some great advice. Couples should be dedicated to spending extra time together in celebration of their union. The church teaches that this week is an opportunity for couples to focus on building a culture of life and love that begins with marriage and the family. The week-long celebration was launched in the U.S. in 2010 as part of an international event seeking to strengthen marriage in communities and to foster a deeper appreciation for the sacrament. A devoted family of 4 made the journey from Pope Francis's home country of Argentina to Rome in hopes of catching a glimpse of the Holy Father in St. Peter's Square. Little did they know they would get more than just a glimpse. Melissa Butts has that report.
Rome is the ideal travel destination for any family, even more so for a family from the same country as the Pope, Argentina. This family of 4 came to Rome from Buenos Aires to see Pope Francis up close in the general audience.
Being Argentinian is special because we've seen the Pope up close. But the magical thing is the people, how the people love him. It's something so awesome you cannot explain it. After we had touched the Pope and been with him, we said to ourselves, that would be impossible to think of.
The youngest in the family was so excited about the moment, she said she was speechless upon seeing Pope Francis. The oldest daughter, Delfina, admitted that she refused to take out her cell phone to truly enjoy the moment. There are already many pictures and videos of the Pope, so I wanted to live the experience without my cell phone. I didn't record him and I enjoyed it more that way. I was excited and a little shocked because I never imagined that I could meet the Pope. I was also very nervous. They've already visited relatives in Rome, the snow, and several cities in Italy. Then they'll travel to Spain where they'll visit more relatives. It's a trip full of sights and family reunions.
Son lugares impactantes.
The places leave an impact. They're unforgettable. It's something you carry inside you and you'll never forget. It has a lot of history. It's something unique. It's a trip full of emotions, new places, and familiar moments, in which they'll forever remember as the trip in which they met the Pope. In Rome, Melissa Butts, Currents News.
Oh, great lesson there about living in the moment. That is Currents News. I'm Liz Faublas. Thank you for joining us because we are putting your faith in the news. I hope to see you again next time.